Hi, welcome to Living Lean and Green with Stacy D. Today we're going to show you how to make ginger marinated pork tenderloin. This recipe was inspired by a recipe I found on Sandy's Kitchen where she uses diet sodas to marinate meat for grilling. So I'm going to be marinating these two beautiful pieces of pork tenderloin. There's about 2.5 pounds of that pork tenderloin there. So this is going to be 6 servings once it's cooked. We're going to mix up our marinade in the gallon-sized Ziploc bag that the pork tenderloins are going to go into. I have it sitting inside a tall glass so that I can pour things in here without worrying about it spilling all over the place. We're going to start out with some diet ginger ale, and we're going to need 12 ounces of this, which is about the equivalent of a diet soda that you drink from a can, which is a optional snack or condiment depending on how you want to measure it. So we're going to pour this in here and let the foam kind of die down so we have 12 ounces of this liquid. While that's settling down in there, I'm going to take 2 cloves of garlic, and you can tell the peel is still on them. I'm going to crush them with the side of a chef's knife and my fist. I think I'm going to do these one at a time because they're so large. Okay, we're going to peel the excess, the peel off, the skin part, the papery peeling. And then we're going to cut that little nub off on the end right there where the root is, the root end. Okay, and then I'm going to take these and just roughly slice them up without getting my finger, hopefully. There we go. Just some rough chop. 2 cloves of garlic, that's 2 condiments. Okay, add a little ginger ale to this. Not quite to the 12 ounce mark yet. Perfect. Okay, we're going to pour that in here. Nice and slow so we don't get a lot of foam again. Now, I'm going to cap this ginger ale off, but as you know, as it sits in the refrigerator or on the counter or whatever, it's going to start to lose its carbonation. Still will be good to use in recipes like this, even without the carbonation. It's not at all an issue. Alright, next I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of soy sauce, which is the equivalent of 4 condiments. Get down here where I can see it. When you're using a liquid measuring cup, you need to be eye level with the liquid so that you make sure you have the right amount. Also, it needs to be on a flat surface. You can't measure it correctly if you're looking at it like this or like this. So it needs to be on a flat surface, and you need to be eye level with the top of it. Now for a marinade, it's not going to be that big of a deal, except that we want our condiment counts to come out correctly. But if you were measuring liquids for baking or something like that, it's very important that those amounts be equal. The next thing we're going to put in here is 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar. It's going to give us a little bit of an acidity that helps tenderize and break down the meat. And that counts as a 1/2 condiment. You can use whatever kind of vinegar you want. I just like to use rice wine vinegar when I'm doing Asian style foods. And then the last thing I'm going to add is a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, which is the equivalent of 2 condiments. So all together, the marinade has about 9.5 condiments. That's going to be 6 servings. And only really about half of this liquid and seasoning is going to be absorbed by the meat. The rest of the marinade is actually going to be thrown out. So that's going to be the equivalent about, believe it or not, 0.79 condiments per person in this recipe. So it saves you a lot of condiments left over for what we're going to make to go along with this pork tenderloin for tonight, which is roasted garlic mashed cauliflower. So everything is in the bag. I don't have to worry about mixing it too much because the liquids just mix on their own. The seasonings are just dispersed on in there, and I'm going to add my pork tenderloins. Pork tenderloin is a nice lean kind of meat. My Kroger store had these on sale, so I bought about 3 of them and stuck them in my freezer. They're quick, easy meat to prepare. You can do them on the grill, you can do them stovetop, you can do them in the oven. Oops, I'm afraid I might have a little leak there. Looks like I might. So I'm going to grab another bag. I don't want this marinade leaking in my refrigerator. When I brought the tenderloins home, I just dropped them individually into these freezer Ziploc bags and stuck them in my freezer. And apparently this one got a hole in it while I was thawing out in the refrigerator. So I'm gonna double bag it so we don't have to worry about there being a mess in the fridge. And then I'm just gonna lay it flat in the fridge and it's gonna marinate until it's time to prepare. The longer it marinates, the more flavor it's gonna pick up. You can do it overnight. In this instance, mine's gonna be marinating for about 4 or 5 hours. And we'll pick up when it's time to do the rest of the cooking. Okay, so for the second part of our recipe, the green part, we're gonna make roasted mashed cauliflower. And this is adapted from a recipe for living well, spending less. I have a whole head of garlic and I'm going to slice, well actually I don't want to do it on top of my liquid oil. I'm going to slice the top of it off. And for this recipe, we're going to roast the garlic. And we're going to end up using 9 of the cloves. So I'm going to count, see how many's in there, and I'm going to make sure I got them all open a bit. So I need to cut a little bit more off the corner. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, there's a little bit more than 9 in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and roast all of these because we'll, well, that one popped out, so we won't need to worry about that one. Take a few more of these out if I didn't get cut when I did my slice. You can leave these papers on, but you just want to make sure that each of the cloves is, the top is cut off. So I'm going to cut a little bit more off. See what that looks like here. See how a little bit of each of the top is cut off? And then what we're going to do, normally you would drizzle this with olive oil and put it into roast, but I'm going to use cooking spray because I don't want to add any extra fat to my dish since we're using the pork. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So a little bit more than I want. I'm going to pop off a couple more of these outside ones. There, that should be about right. And I'm going to set this down in a piece of foil, and I'm going to spray it all over with some cooking spray. And we're going to bundle this foil up. I have an oven preheated to 400, and this is going to roast for 25 to 50 minutes, or excuse me, 25 to 30 minutes in the oven, so that garlic gets nice and soft. And then we're just going to take it out, set it aside, open up the package, let it cool before we add it to our mashed cauliflower. Okay, so the next step in the roasted garlic mashed cauliflowers, we're going to need 9 cups of broccoli florets, or broccoli, cauliflower florets. This glass bowl goes up to 8 to this line. I'm just going to fill it all the way to the top and assume that that's 9. Actually, what I can do is I can get a 1 cup measure. This is going to be 6 servings, so every person can have 1.5 cups of this delicious mashed cauliflower seasoned with roasted garlic. And each serving of 1.5 cups of this will also then equal about 2¼ condiments. So that combined with the 0.79 condiments that you'll get from the pork tenderloin will even this up just right. You need to make sure that you rinse your cauliflower. I don't like to put the big stem pieces in just because sometimes they're a little bit harder to puree up whenever you go to make the mashed. This recipe says you can do it in a large capacity food processor, which I really don't have one. Oops, dropped one on the floor. My dog has been eating the little pieces I drop on the floor. He'll probably have an interesting reaction to that later. I don't have one of those, so I'm going to actually use my immersion blender to mash these after they're all assembled. The other ingredients that are going to go into this dish are 1/3 cup of unsweetened plain almond milk, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper. And that will season these along with the roasted garlic. Now, this is a very large head of cauliflower, so I'll probably have some left over after I get this broken up in here. And if so, I'll just put them in a Ziploc bag, stick it in the refrigerator. They'll stay fresh for several days that way, and you can use them to make other recipes. As you know, on the 5-in-1 plan, we use cauliflower a lot for pizza crust. I have made grilled cheese type pieces with them, where we put meatballs and marinara on it to make a meatball splash. There's lots of ways you can use this cauliflower, so it's always good to buy the biggest head, especially when it's on sale, and just save the excess. You can also steam it, or blanch it rather, and make sure it's dry and freeze it, and it does well that way as well. Alright, still working on, I guess I should have started some of these before I started the video. Apologize for the boringness. But when this is all done and we have our 9 cups, we're going to put them in a large saucepan with a little bit of water, and we're going to steam them, cook them about 8 minutes once the water comes to a boil. Drain that, add the almond milk, the salt, and the pepper, and then I'm going to use the immersion blender to blend them. So right now I'm just getting them prepped while the garlic is roasting, and as soon as I get them prepped, I'm not going to cook this yet. I'm going to brown the pork tenderloins in my cast iron skillet and then finish them in the 400-degree oven while the garlic is finishing its roasting time, so that they're done pretty much the same time. Garlic's going to come out a little bit ahead of time so it can cool down, and I'll show you how we're going to add that to the mashed cauliflower. Almost there. Put all 9 cups to this big Dutch oven sized pan. I'm going to add about 1 inch of water on the bottom. And then it's going to set it here on the stove so it is ready to go here in a minute. When I bring this to a boil, I'm going to do it with a lid on it so that it will come to heat faster. And then I'm going to preheat the cast iron skillet. Let me move the camera here so that you guys can see what's going to be happening here. Bear with me for just a second. Untangle the cord here. Alrighty. So I've got the cast iron skillet preheating. There's about 16 minutes left on the roasted garlic. I've taken the pork tenderloins out of the refrigerator so they can come to room temperature for about 10 minutes before they go in the oven, or excuse me, in the pan. Alright. So we're going to get this pretty hot here, and I'm going to grab a couple things that I can pick it up and stick it into the oven, because it's going to go into the oven in this cast iron skillet. These things are great. They look terrible, but they're perfect for what I need, because it makes it easier to hold on to stuff because of the way they're designed. My mom got them for me for Christmas a few years ago. They used to sell them on TV, and honestly, it's one of my favorite kitchen gadgets. Alright, so we've got the bags opened up. As soon as this gets pretty hot here, we'll put these in. I'm just going to sear all sides so they're nice and brown, helps lock in the juices. This out of the way, I can't do that anymore. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to grab my immersion blender. I don't know if you all have ever used one of these before, but it's a very handy appliance. My daughter actually has one of these in her college apartment because you can use them just like you use a mixer, and they're a lot smaller, take up a lot less room. Hers is actually even smaller than mine, and she uses it a lot to make cookies and things like that. You can use it for those sorts of things. All right, that's nice and screaming hot. Maybe not screaming hot, but it's hot. I'm gonna take one of these pork tenderloins out. A tip I meant to share with you earlier when I was preparing the marinade. Pork tenderloins come in a package of 2. Okay, this package of 2 weighed 2.5 pounds total. If you do not want to make 6 servings of pork at the same time, and just want to freeze them individually, just take, when you get them home, just take them out of the package, put them in separate packages, and freeze them individually like that. You can even go ahead and prepare the marinade, put it in the Ziploc bags with the tenderloins, and freeze it all together. That way when you take it out of the freezer to thaw, it'll start marinating as that marinade thaws with the meat, and you save yourself some steps later. So it's a good way to pre-marinate, I guess, for lack of a better way, because it marinates as it's freezing and it starts to marinate again as it thaws. And it's just a step that you can take like on a weekend when you have more time, to save time on a weeknight. When you get home and everything's marinated, ready to go. These took a couple days to thaw out completely in my refrigerator. And that was mostly because they were together in one package, so it made it a lot thicker piece of meat. This gets nice and brown on this side. I'm going to flip it over. I hope you guys can see into there. Let me zoom this in just a little bit. You can see these delicious tenderloin. Now, those of you who like to hunt and have your own deer, venison tenderloins would be very good for this also. The biggest difference is you have to add some fat to those, because those are in the leanest meat category. They are very lean meat, and you would need to have some fat in this pan before you put them in here and start to sear them. As you can see, the marinade itself is coating the pan enough, and the little bit of oil that we always put on a cast iron skillet when it's dry to season it also helps keep these from sticking, plus the natural fat that's in the pork. When you have venison tenderloins, you wouldn't have that. Beef tenderloins would probably be fine like this, doing just like I'm doing right now. Alright, so we're going to let that sit there. And don't have to really worry about waiting for that to brown on that side, since that side's down in the skillet. It will anyways, it's in the oven. There's about 12 minutes left in the oven for the garlic. And I'm going to go ahead and add the pork right in with it. Squeeze the garlic over on one side. And we're going to let those both sit in there for the next 12 minutes. And we'll check the doneness of the pork tenderloin at that time. And then it'll come out and rest while we finish preparing the roasted garlic. I'm going to let this time get down for just another minute to 10 minutes, and then I'm going to turn this burner. Actually, I'm going to move this over to the bigger burner, because it always seems like it heats up faster over here when I use the burner that's a little bit bigger than the pan. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this on to high and get that started so it'll start boiling. And once it comes to, the water comes to boil and this starts to steam, I'm going to let it go for about 8 minutes. So I will check back in when we're close to done time here. Okay, so that timer went off. Broccoli, or excuse, I keep saying broccoli, cauliflower needs to come off the heat and be drained. The roasted garlic needs to come out of the oven. Take it out, leave the pork in there. Take this over and drain it. And then after it's drained, sorry, my phone's going crazy over here. I'm getting a million text messages about the tomorrow. And here, I'm just going to put this over here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and add the almond milk to this so it can kind of be warming up with the cauliflower before I mash it. And then I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle in 3/4 of a teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Just going to put the lid on that to keep it hot. I used 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pink Himalaya salt, just for fun and variety. Now I'm going to grab the thermometer so I can check the temperature of this pork real quick. See if it's done. Pork needs to be about 140 in the middle to be done. It's inserted right here, the thickest part, about halfway down in. Oh, that smells really good. And that's going to leave your pork just a slight bit pink in the middle. If you like it to be more done than that, feel free to go ahead and roast it a little bit longer. Okay, that is not quite ready. So it's about 110. So we'll put that back in there. We'll let that come back up to temperature and finish roasting. So while it's finishing, we'll go ahead and finish up the cauliflower. Let me move this over here so you guys can see that. And it'll stay plenty warm in this saucepan while we're waiting on the pork to finish. And whoops, I forgot about doing the garlic. So let me leave that back on there so it stays hot. I'm gonna open up this garlic. Can you guys see? Let's get you over here so you can see that. Oil's already cooled down enough to handle. So there's garlic. What you're gonna do to get this roasted garlic, that part's a little bit warm. Let that cool for just a bit. All right, we're gonna let that sit and cool, and I've got a timer set for 5 more minutes on that pork so we can check it, and by that time that garlic should be cool enough to handle. We'll be back. Okay, so I ended up roasting the pork tenderloins for about another 10 minutes to get them up to temperature. Taking them out of the oven, and I'm going to place them on this cutting board so they can rest for about 5 minutes before we slice them so that they maintain their juicy tenderness. Okay? So while that's over there, we're going to scooch over here to the mashed cauliflower and get it finished. Take this lid off, and we're going to take roasted garlic cloves, and we're going to just basically squeeze out the pulp out of these skins. See how that comes out just like that? It smells excellent. So there's one. Like I said, we need a total of 9. Whatever's left over, trust me, my daughter Lynn will find a way to use it because she loves garlic. She's very good at coming up with her own recipes. Oh, that one just peeled right out of the skin. There's 3. Just trying to keep from getting that papery skin down in my cauliflower. There's 4. There's 6, 7, the roasted garlic would be really good served on any meat, really, some grilled chicken, or tossed with any vegetables. There's 8. Well, that was a big one. And here's 9. I got like 3 left over here that Lane will be able to play with, do something with this week. I guarantee you she'll come up with something. Knowing her, she'll probably toss it with some pasta and a little olive oil and Parmesan cheese. Right? I'm gonna put, actually I guess there's only 1 left over for her. Set that over there, so put that in the fridge later. Get these out of the way. So I got everything in there. The 3rd cup of unsweetened plain almond milk, salt, 3/4 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, roasted garlic, and we're just gonna start pureeing. So it's the consistency of mashed potatoes. And you can see why I love this appliance because it makes short work of this job. I use it a lot of times when I make any soups, gravies, anything like that. Quick and easy way to do this. You can use a regular mixer if you prefer, because the cauliflower is fibrous. I prefer to use a regular mixer. Make sure we're pureeing that garlic. If you don't like garlic, just use some other seasoning. But roasting that garlic makes it extremely sweet and nutty. It tastes different than garlic powder or garlic just chopped up into some other thing. Alright. Tap off. And that is done. Let's see. There we go. And that's going to be 6 servings. So when we portion this up, we're just going to divide it into 6. So I'm going to kind of do it down here stays hot. If you prepare this ahead of time, it can be reheated in the oven at 325 degrees until hot. You can just put it in a casserole dish that's been sprayed with some cooking spray. So let's check this out and see what we got going on here. See how that looks. I'm going to grab my scales so you guys can see. Let's plate it and you guys can see the finished product here. So let me grab a plate. My Christmas plates are already all the way over on the table, so I'm not going to grab one of those. So we're going to want 5 ounces of this pork tenderloin. Oh, stray garlic. And you can just cut the pork tenderloins straight across into about inch slices, or thinner if you like. It's completely up to you. You don't have to worry about cutting against the grain or anything like that with this type of meat, because it is nice and tender regardless of which way you cut it. I'm just going to go ahead and cut all of this one. My daughter's going to be joining me for dinner, and the leftovers will be there for tomorrow's dinner, Sunday dinner. You could also prepare this tenderloin on the grill if you choose. Here, see if that gets up to my 5 ounces. Not quite, so let's get a smaller little piece here. There we go. 5 ounces. That's what that looks like, all plated. See how beautiful it is, just a little bit pink in the middle. If you like yours to be more done than that, add another 5 minutes in the oven. It's completely up to you. My husband usually takes the pork tenderloin when I prepare it like this and throws it back in the pan on the stove for a little bit, or in the microwave, because he does not like any pink in his pork products, even though it's completely fine to eat it that way. Alright, so 1/6 of this mashed potato puree. There we go. And I'm going to place on top just a little bit of, oh, I don't want that, that's really well, maybe not. That's the only thing green I have. Some dried parsley. I must have used all of it. If I had some fresh parsley, I'd chop some of that up and put it on top to make that just a little more appetizing. But for most of us, there's nothing more comforting on a December night than meat and potatoes. And oops, there you go. For most of us, there's nothing more appetizing than meat and potatoes on a cold December night. And there you have it. Healthy, lean, and green meal. Thank you for watching.